Welcome back. Good to have you in. We've had Jane Slater on, reporter NFL Network, based out of Dallas, Texas. She's been at Oxnard at the Cowboys camp for the last couple of weeks. She's been a great guest on our show. We thought we'd bring her on today because the Zeke and Jerry and Stephen Jones negotiations through Jane yesterday were very, very public, and Jane is now joining us on the phone. Generally speaking, Jane, I wouldn't love my team negotiating through the media. Aaron Donald and the Rams, Stan Kroenke, it was very quiet. Carson Wentz with Philadelphia, it lasted maybe 6 hours, and it was no longer a story. This thing's gone on now for 2-3 weeks. It's very public. What do you make of that?
I don't make too much of it, Colin, because it's Dallas, and we're used to it when you cover this team. But here's what I will say about the situation. I think what the Cowboys are saying to you is, look, we feel as though we have put what they described as generous offers on the table for all three of them, Dak, Amari, and Zeke. They feel good about them. But as we've discussed throughout camp, it takes two to tango. And it doesn't sound like, at least from the Cowboy side, that they have had a willing dance partner in some of this. In other words, where they're at and where all three of these players are at are nowhere close to where they want to be. I've been told that they have made offers when they characterize it as generous that puts each one of these players in the top 5 at their positions in terms of highest paid. So they feel good about that. And, you know, we talked about this last week. This Zeke thing, it's my understanding what they're asking is close to Todd Gurley numbers. The Cowboys feel like that's a bad deal. They don't want to get in the business of starting with Todd Gurley numbers. They feel the Le'Veon Bell numbers are more appropriate, and that's been the rub here. But it was also described to me that if they can't get on board with something ahead of the season, the Cowboys aren't necessarily opposed to doing one-year prove-it deals.
Yeah, their schedule's favorable in the first 3 weeks. Dallas could get off the 3-0 start. They face kind of rebuilding teams. I think Washington, New York Giants are up in there. You know, Zeke almost sounded like yesterday. The story that Zeke's camp appeared to leak to ESPN almost sounded like a threat. We told you in January, we're not going to play without a deal. It came off as a threat to me. How does it come off to you?
I think it's also their way of posturing in this situation. If the Cowboys aren't going to budge and they are sticking with the number and we're not going to get the deal we want done, then here's where we're at. I would say, again, this goes back to it's easy to hear some of the stuff play out in the media and everybody to sort of panic. I think the reason why some of us that cover this team so regularly have not gone into sort of Stephen Jones and said, hey, why don't you and DeMarcus Lawrence talk, air out your grievances? They had what was described as a come-to-Jesus meeting, and then everybody was able to get this deal done. It allowed DeMarcus Lawrence to go and get his shoulder surgery. He's starting camp on the PUP list, but he's going to be ready to play by the start of the season, and he got the deal he was looking for. So I don't feel like it's gotten to the point where both sides are to the point where they are literally walking from this table. It's going to be this massive Zeke holdup. I still haven't gotten that sense, Colin. And, you know, but I'll preface that by saying, look, I started from the beginning on this one saying that everyone expected Zeke at camp, and he's not here. So I could 1,000% be wrong on this thing, but I will tell you the tone and the feeling here at camp is not one that feels like they can't get something done before the start of the season. I don't expect him here today by this August 6th to accrue that year of free agency that you need in order to be an unrestricted free agent. I get the sense that he's going to be a little bit closer to the start of the season. That's when we'll start seeing some real movement. The Cowboys, of course, break camp here in about a week and a half, go back to Dallas. I think we might see a little bit more movement then, but I think right now the two parties are still pretty far apart, as we talked about last week.
All right, Jane Slater, follow her at Slater NFL. NFL Network Inside the Training Camp is concluding here Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Jane, we appreciate you stopping by again. Thank you so much.
Always appreciate having me on. I appreciate it, Colin. Bye.
All right. Let's just look at the Cowboys schedule, by the way. It is a very favorable schedule through the first 3 weeks. You get a Giants team, which has cluster injuries at wide receiver. You get a Washington team that may be starting Colt McCoy or a rookie, and a Miami team that, if not tanking, is really, in terms of current roster potential, very limited. They don't even quite know exactly what they're going to be at quarterback. Then the schedule gets really, really interesting. They have to go to New Orleans, Green Bay, at the Jets, Philadelphia, at the Giants, Minnesota. There's some really good teams, and you're on the road in that stretch. So I've always thought this was more precarious and a little more serious than even people covering it. I also think Stephen Jones and Jerry are smartly, shrewdly posturing themselves as reasonable and fair. And I think Zeke sounds like a holdout. Jane just said there's not even really discussions here with their agent. They're not communicating. These are veteran negotiators in the Jones family and to this point, judicially immature football player who's in Mexico. They're not talking. He's made demands. I think it's more serious than what we've been led to believe. Here's Joy with the news.